What's up? It's Tom. Thanks for clicking on this video. And Twin case you missed it, we got some news on the Twins managerial search and their efforts to replace Rocco Baldelli. Dan Hayes and company of The Athletic reporting that it is down to 4 candidates. I want to go over my thoughts on these final 4, if you will, but I also want to stress to go check out this article. I'm not going to touch on some things that Dan revealed in his reporting on sort of who is the leader in the clubhouse at the moment, or who are. There's some items in this article where he points out where the Twins are kind of leaning, according to his sources. I'm going to talk about instead my thoughts on these 4 guys, and I want to hear your thoughts as well, because kind of the interesting, it's kind of a fun in the way in that, there's not like a baseball savant page for these managers. It's not like analyzing a player where we really have a lot to grasp onto in terms of data. So that can be a little bit frustrating in trying to figure out who the best guy is, but also it's kind of fun to discuss then, because I feel like there's like not really right or wrong answers. It's kind of like which flavor of guy that you like best. And if you've been following my analysis on this search, I've been gravitating toward guys like George Lombard, who they didn't show any interest in, unfortunately. Apparently nobody watches my videos at One Twins way, but yeah, and then Ramon Vasquez was a guy they did interview who I thought was a candidate that would fit kind of what I was looking for, and he's down in the final 4. Ryan Flaherty, we're going to talk about these guys in order of last name alphabetically, and Ryan Flaherty is the first guy, the current bench coach of the Cubs. If you're looking for kind of a younger guy who might be like a guy that you catch on the come up, and you sort of steal him away early in his career before he goes elsewhere, Ryan Flaherty's maybe your choice here. He's the youngest candidate. That also means he has probably the least experience out of any of these other guys. Definitely has the least experience out of the other 3 guys, but is a number two guy with Chicago. So it's not like he's not been involved in a big time big league coaching gig, has not been a manager, but a big league manager. But I don't really necessarily view that as a negative. So you might think, oh, well, Ryan Flaherty, that must be Tom's guy. I like him. I'm intrigued. I want to learn more about him. But as we stand right now, I'm actually kind of surprising myself in that James Rowson is actually my preferred pick out of this final 4. And I specifically grabbed a Miami Marlins picture of him to remind everybody he's been a bench coach. He's mostly known as a hitting coach, yes, but he was a bench coach with the Marlins. He has been in that number 2 role before, and one of the best regarded hitting coaches, offensive minds in all of baseball, James Rowson, currently the Yankees hitting coach. I just feel like he sort of merges a lot of the things that I am looking for, in that he has the experience. I think you can definitely say that James Rowson deserves a chance to manage if that's what he wants to do at this point. Somebody should give this guy a shot. But at the same time, he's never been a manager. So you have that you have the experience, you have a guy that's been involved in a high level of major league coaching for a really long time, yet he's never been a manager. So he has that kind of fresh perspective of, you can kind of say, all right, well, this guy's never been in this role. What could he do here? And ask that question honestly. So I'm curious at what that would look like of him running a team, being the manager. And I think he deserves a shot. I'll be completely honest. I'm not super excited about this final 4. So take that into account when I'm talking up James Rowson in this way. I don't think there's necessarily a bad pick between this final 4, but it kind of just depends on what you're looking for. And yeah, James Rowson's accomplished. He's kind of my guy at this point. And on these last 2 guys, you can kind of say the same thing. Scott Servais, if it didn't work in Seattle, why do you think it's going to work here? And that's kind of the appeal to me of a James Rowson, is that you can't ask yourself that question really, and you better have an answer for that if you're going to hire Scott Servais. Taking that away, I think this is a good candidate. He's got like 8 or 9 years of managing experience with Seattle up until I think he got fired last season. Former big league catcher. That's always kind of a plus for me when looking at managerial candidates. A guy from the Midwest. He's from Wisconsin. I think that's a plus. None of those things are huge factors, but I think those are pluses. And yeah, but my question there is just like, what happened in Seattle, and why do you think that's not going to happen here? Now, strip that away, and let's just take a hypothetical scenario and say, well, the Twins aren't really looking for their next manager of the future. They're more so just looking for somebody to sort of stabilize the ship for a couple of years while it appears the team might be going through a transitional period, then maybe I can kind of understand a Scott Servais as a hire a little bit more often. And then maybe the plan is that he's a transitional manager, and then you really try to find your next hot shot manager in a couple of years to really push the organization forward from there. I don't know. I don't know. That's just sort of a thought that I have on that. So, I think he would be a good option if that is the motivation, but that's, as I look at things, that's not how I would see it. Derek Shelton, you could say a lot of the same stuff about. If it didn't work in Pittsburgh, why do you think it's going to work here? You hired Rocco Baldelli over Derek Shelton. Back at the time that you hired Rocco, you could have just promoted Derek Shelton and had him be the manager, and you didn't do that. So why at this point, how is the situation changed to where now you fired Rocco Baldelli and now you're going to go back to Derek Shelton? That doesn't make any sense to me either. And I also, I'm trying not to hold this against Derek Shelton. If he gets hired, I'm going to really try to not hold this against him. But this just feels like if he gets hired, it's going to be really difficult for me not to just be like, well, Derek Falvey ran this whole process then. And personally, I don't really like the idea of that. I want Derek Falvey more on the business side and out of the baseball side. I think there's really good argument to be made. He should have been fired along with Rocco. But I think that's just, he's so embedded now. It's not even worth wasting your breath on. Derek Falvey's in here. He's not going anywhere. So I'm trying to not hold that against Derek Shelton, that he is so connected to Derek Falvey. And then again, maybe he would be a good transitional manager. Like I was saying about Servais. So there's positives with Shelton as well. And obviously it's a familiar situation, but in my opinion, if you're going to move on from Rocco Baldelli, why would you then go to Derek Shelton? Go somewhere else. This just feels like he'd be like Rocco 2.0. So anyway, that's my thoughts on that Final Four. Again, urge you to go check out that article at the Athletic from Dan Hayes to support the Athletic. They do great work. Really appreciate the reporting and the legwork on that we now know that. But thanks for checking this one out. We'll talk again soon.